What is going on, you guys? Today I have another super quick episode for you. We're going to be reviewing a video from Eckhart Tolle, or Eckhart Tolle. I might be mispronouncing that, but the episode title is A Guide to Finding Your True Self Beyond the Ego. Definitely going to be a good video, so let's hop into it.
And so as the adult builds up a identifications that form the identity. And unfortunately, it's never quite enough. There's always something missing, and quite often it is painful to compare yourself to others. Do I have more or less than the others? So the ego is to do with what I can do, how I look, what I have, my possessions, abilities, playing an instrument, sports, good at this, good at that, whatever it may be. For a long time I struggled with an identity because I had an unhappy sense of identity. I couldn't identify with possessions because my parents didn't have any possessions, or just basic ones, and I didn't have any. I couldn't identify with a great, strong, good-looking body. I didn't have that. So I was struggling. I felt diminished. Let's say compared to others, I felt diminished. And it's very painful. And so after many years, I suddenly realized...
I think that's something really relatable, like a lot of people struggle with in some way, right? Like for some area of their life, they are comparing themselves to others and feel less than for some reason. And he's going to talk about it, I'm sure, but like it's your job basically to get to the point where you realize that you already have everything that you need. Right? So not to identify with these external things.
I got it. I know what I can do. I can be more knowledgeable than others. I can read books, and then I can talk about these books intelligently, and I can show others that I know more than they do. It worked. But it didn't make me happy. I was still very...
See, he tried to find a way to make the ego happy there. Like, oh, I can be better at people in this thing, right? And he said at the end of the day, he thought it worked, but it didn't make him happy.
Insecure and basically unhappy, trying to show off what a great intellectual I was. Dropping names of famous authors. I just dropped Kafka, but that was for another reason. That was not for egoic reasons, I can assure you. And so you live in a precarious way, feeling my identity is not complete yet. I need something. There's something missing. That's a very fundamental feeling for humans who are trapped in their own ego. There's something missing. There's something not right. And so they are seeking. And
yeah, you have to get to the point where you're no longer seeking like, oh, I need more, right? Because that's what a lot of people do. Like, that's what happens to a lot of people when they achieve some of their goals, right? It's like you get there and then you're like, now I want more, rather than realizing that you have what you need already, right?
Seeking to add something to who I am or who I think I am. It's always conceptual. And so the ego also needs boundaries. The ego needs a boundary. It needs to say, this is I, me, and this is the other. Without the boundary, it cannot sustain its sense of identity. So it needs to feel better than or superior to somebody else. The boundary around the ego needs some kind of enemy, the other. People have, I forgot to mention, an important part of conceptual identity for many people is also collective identity. It's not just personal. You also take things from the collective, the country where you live, or your religion, whatever it may be, or your political persuasion, and that becomes part of your identity, your conceptual identity, of a collective identity. It could also be race. If you're a racist, then you identify with your race as superior than another race, another conceptual identity. Religion can be an important part of your conceptual identity too, and what it usually means, my religion is the only one that is true and all the others are false. When you hear that, it's a clear sign that it is the ego speaking. The ego has adopted, identified with religion, and
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not just a religion thing. It's other things too, right? Like, it's perception, right? It's like your pair of glasses, like based on your snapshot of life, like the ego getting in the way and being like, my truth is the only thing that is actually true, the only religion that's actually right, this and that, right? And obviously he's talking about it now, but like, again, it's the ego speaking.
it needs to pronounce all the others as inferior. Only ours, or mine, or our religion is the only true one. All the others are going to hell. We are the only ones who are going to heaven. Well, that's very satisfying to the ego. Wow. I'm one of the few chosen ones. Look at me. Oh, it's wonderful. But then you need others that disagree with you, because without the others you cannot sustain your conceptual identity. If the others don't disagree, then your identity becomes fluid and dissolves. So you need the others who have opposite interpretations of your same religion or some other religion, and they are your enemy because they are probably controlled by the devil.
And this is why people have such a hard time when they are proven difficult in something that they were really or proven wrong in something that they were really convicted about, right? Like you've convinced yourself your whole life this one thing is true, and then when you find out that it might not be true, like you get sort of defensive, right? Or you find out that it isn't true, then you get, again, right, defensive, and your world basically flips upside down. Like, wait, like this thing that I believe my whole life, it might not be true, or it isn't true, or, you know, because it's a difference between, like, I suppose the what's true based on your perception and reality. And we all have different perceptions for how we see ourselves and how we see others, right? So it's a very interesting conversation.
So there, that's them. Politically, you can do it too. You have a political system that pronounces the other as not just inferior, as actually evil. That's all kinds of collective identities. Any kind of prejudice that people have is to do with conceptual identity. Race is one that many people have. If you don't have much else in your life, you could identify with your race and see, okay, our race is the greatest and all the others are inferior. And then that gives you your sense of identity. Now, you can see how you need the other. In an imaginary scenario, let's say a person who is a racist, one morning he or she wakes up, not having become a beetle as in Kafka, no. So one morning he or she wakes up, suddenly finds himself on another planet, and then begins to realize that everybody on this planet is exactly the same race as me. There is no other race. In fact, on this planet where this person suddenly finds himself, the word race does not even exist. Because if everybody is the same race and the same skin color, you will not even have a word for race. So the entire identity that was built up on race would collapse immediately. Without the other, it cannot be sustained. You could also say, you can take any example. Let's say you have a noisy Italian sports car, because Italian sports cars are meant to be noisy to attract attention. So you have a Lamborghini, and it's painted red to attract even more attention, and it gives your ego a boost. Look at me. Everybody looking because it's so noisy. And then in another imaginary scenario, the next day you wake up in another dimension, and in this dimension, every human being has the same red Lamborghini or whatever it is. Immediately, your ego cannot use it anymore. It becomes totally meaningless. So then your conceptual identity will then collapse without the other.
An interesting point about that one is he said it right. It's literally being used for attention, meaning that someone was looking for validation outside of themselves. That's important to note, right? Outside of themselves. Because you want to get to the point where you can validate yourself. Right? That will be like one of the let's say one of the biggest levels of fulfillment.
The egoic identity desperately needs the other, who is not different, me, the enemy. It loves its enemies. And that's actually how many wars even start like that. You demonize an entire group of people, make them into an enemy, and then you feel a much stronger sense of identity. Another identity is from a collective, is for people to identify even with their gender, male or female. I'm not sure gender has become a problematic thing. I'll put that aside for a moment. Let's just say there's male and female, and in older cultures, or it's still in some cultures now, an important part for a person's identity is actually their gender. If they are male, for example, they're male, that becomes a very important part of their conceptual sense of self, because what it is implied that male is automatically superior to female. So you already have 50%. You can be a very stupid man, but you have superiority over 50% of the population that is female. No matter how stupid you are, you're a man. In some countries that still operates more or less. So I'm a man. And in some countries also females are conditioned to identify with and act out a particular way of behaving and speaking female. They don't know it's totally conditioned, it's part of their identity. So I've been talking about the ego, the human ego. One could talk about for hours, but I won't go on and on. You're all familiar with the ego because at some point before you went through a spiritual awakening, you also had an ego. So it all comes back to conceptual identity. Is that who I am? Is that all there is to me? Or is there maybe a dimension to who I am that I have never known, that I'm not aware of at all? Is there more? Or am I just this ego entity, the I? And so that's why we are here. We need to, part of awakening to this dimension that exists in every human being, the possibility of realizing that there is in you the potential of a deeper dimension of consciousness in every human. And the discovery of this deeper dimension of consciousness in every human is the most important part of your life journey here on this planet.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, because I think a lot of people have a situation where they realize that their ego was holding them back somehow, right? Like, doesn't matter what the area was, whether it was with what they're eating, the gym, advice from people, being stubborn and not listening. But the thing he was talking about, feeling like, you're worth more or less than somebody because you're comparing yourself to them, like what they have and what you don't. Being able to validate yourself versus needing validation from others. Right? Like being able to acknowledge your ego. And sure, maybe it's still there. Maybe you can just befriend it, right? But being able to get to that deeper level where your ego is no longer holding you back and you're aware that there's more to life than that. So I love this video. I haven't checked out too much from this guy. I know he's very, very popular with people, so definitely going to be diving more into his stuff. So hope you guys were able to take something valuable from this video and enjoyed it. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. You got this, bro.